The Tamil genocide, Australia's role in Sri Lankan President Rajapaksa's brutal genocide and the ongoing implications for refugees seeking resettlement in Australia. From Melbourne, you're watching The World from Below. I'm Lizzie O'Shea. A number of Victorian family violence organisations laid 29 red roses and 8 white rosebuds on the steps of Parliament House in Melbourne this week to represent the women and children killed in family violence last year. The organisations are calling on the Victorian Government to take the issue of family violence seriously, particularly in the lead up to the November state election. Advocates estimate that the cost of violence against women to the community and to the economy each year in Victoria amounts to over $3.4 billion. Family violence is a cause of 35% of Victoria's homelessness. Advocates are calling for a range of commitments from the major parties, including funding for case management services and counselling and the establishment of family violence units in every court in Victoria. The Victorian opposition has announced it will hold a royal commission into the issue if they are elected later this year. A plan to end the military assault on Gaza has been agreed to by Israeli and Palestinian groups this week. Israel has agreed to ease the blockade of Gaza to allow the flow of goods, including humanitarian aid and reconstruction equipment. It is expected that the Palestinian Authority will take over responsibility for Gaza's borders from the Hamas government. The Palestinian Authority will also lead the reconstruction effort in Gaza, which will be financed by the international community. Israel has also agreed to extend the fishing limit off Gaza's coast. Discussions will continue about the release of prisoners requested by Palestinian groups. The Hamas government has also sought the unfreezing of funds to allow it to pay 40,000 police and public sector workers, many of whom have been working without pay for months. Hamas is also requesting that the Israelis permit a seaport to be built in Gaza and for the airport in Gaza to be reopened. The airport was bombed by Israel in the year 2000. The agreement brings an end to Operation Protective Edge, which has involved 50 days of heavy bombardment, killing more than 2,100 Palestinians, the vast majority civilians, and has left thousands homeless and without basic health or civil infrastructure. A pop-up refugee embassy has set up camp outside the Department of Immigration and Border Protection building in Canberra. It is part of a protest over the Australian government's treatment of asylum seekers. Refugee advocates plan to take the pop-up embassy to the Lodge, Parliament House and a number of other locations. The head of the Australian Human Rights Commission, Gillian Triggs, has also come under fire this week from Liberal MPs for supposedly exceeding her role. The Immigration Minister, Scott Morrison, gave evidence before the Commission's inquiry into children in immigration detention this week, where questioning from the President of the Commission produced an at times heated response from the Minister. The inquiry has revealed extensive mental health problems amongst children in immigration detention and allegations of abuse and neglect. The controversial World Congress of Families conference is set to start tomorrow in Melbourne under a cloud of chaos, with organisers struggling to find a venue. The opening address will be delivered by Social Services Minister Kevin Andrews, and the Victorian Attorney General Robert Clark and Federal Liberal Senator Cory Bernardi will also attend. The Conservative Christian Conference is set to host speakers who are variously known for their anti-euthanasia, anti-divorce, anti-abortion and anti-gay views. Protesters are expected to gather at the conference. To date, 4 venues have refused to host the conference. The Minister for Social Services, Kevin Andrews, has also been in the news this week, raising the prospect of expanding income management for people with gambling problems and victims of domestic violence. The measures would potentially apply to groups who are perceived as unable to manage their money or who are vulnerable to people taking their money. These people would have between 50% and 90% of their welfare payments managed by federal bureaucrats. Income management controversially began as part of the NT intervention and has been rolled out across several locations since, now applying to over 21,000 people nationally. The Minister admitted that it was an expensive policy. And those are the stories that we've been following this week. We'll be back after a short break to talk with our guests, journalist and refugee advocate Trevor Grant and Tamil refugee Aaron Malvagnam from the Tamil Refugee Council.